So Frank, what went through your head when that elephant was chasing you?
Very first thought, run. And so I was running as fast as I could, but you can't beat an elephant. And I thought it was game over.
I can make a shape with my body and suddenly be flying across the sky at over 100 miles per hour.
Not too many people can do a backflip or double or the twisting. We are special. Gymnastics people, we are special.
Okay, so you have terrestrial sports. Space Games Federation is going to help terrestrial sports take their sports to space.
And he was horrified because he just realized he was having so much fun. He forgot about the fact that he doesn't talk, and he just copied me and said, touch your knee.
If you're a business person, that is one of the most valuable things you have is your personal brand.
Yeah, it's something that I've trained myself to be good at. Like, I can smoke a joint and do an interview where not a lot of people can do that.
What would be the ideal training? Like, if you guys had $1 billion and so the government gave you a grant, $1 billion, what would you invest in?
But that's a super interesting question. I don't think I've ever thought about that.
Super. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. And I thank you for doing this, because I think it's great for people to speak, to share, to challenge each other, and to think together.
Well, that's the thing. I've seen in the industry that it tends to have little pockets of information, but no one's really just put it all together to say, hey, little 10-year-old, this is what you need to know. If you think that acrobatics in some way is going to be your career, here's what you need to know to get started. So thank you for helping us do that, and we'll have you on next time we can.
Super. Thank you. Good luck.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Rowe Show. I'm your host Greg Rowe, and I'm going to take you along a journey through acrobatic sports. In recent years, there have been a lot of new sports popping out of nowhere, stemming from traditional sports, and in each of the episodes, I'll be interviewing high-profile leaders within all of these different sport communities. We will be discussing many different aspects of these new sports, from educational development, sponsorship and branding, influencer lifestyles, and ask the tough questions to get a full three-dimensional view of these freestyle acrobatic sports. On the flip side, I'll be bringing in legends of more traditional acrobatic disciplines, such as artistic gymnastics and traditional trampoline. There is a lot that the new generation can learn from the legends who have seen the world revolve for many years. Over these episodes, I'll dig through both traditional and freestyle acrobatic sports to see the similarities and the differences. We will be having the hard discussions such as critiquing traditional educational structures, but also acknowledging some of the flaws in these new freestyle sports, but most importantly, we will be looking to find the commonalities where both sides can take something away and apply to their careers in any discipline. We will be discussing the business of sport, sport philosophy, sports marketing, sports psychology, and coaching techniques, just to name a few. We will also be bringing in the most interesting sports leaders right on this podcast so you can hear their experiences and hopefully learn something along the way. As our introductory episode, I will highlight a few of the topics we will be covering with a few of our guests so you can see exactly what we have planned for this first season. As we progress through the season, we'll be bringing on new guests every episode and discuss hot topics, not just the basic stuff, but the interesting stuff you may not even think about. Guests include sky surfers like Sean McCormick, who will tell us what it's like to jump at the edge of a thunderstorm. We have biomechanists like Jerry George and Hardy Fink that will discuss educational development in traditional gymnastics. We have TV producers such as Stuart Cox, who created Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, who's going to give us a sneak peek into the world of high-level production media. We also have wind tunnel athletes, extreme pogo athletes, parasurfers, and many others who have unique and interesting stories that are amazing to hear, but also educational and give you a real-world experience from those who have actually done it. Other podcasts may be a bit linear, but The Rowe Show, we're going to go 100 miles an hour all over the acrobatic industry and are going to ask the tough questions as we travel the world with our freestyle team. We will be asking questions such as, what can an Olympic ski jumper tell us about what it's like to really fly? How can freestyle sports athletes remain safe despite very little formal coaching? Why don't Olympic trampoline athletes get millions of dollars in endorsements like many other sports? What is the easiest way to grow your social media following? What does it feel like to go into outer space? Could traditional sports structures be modified internally to better fit an online world? And what's the deal with fear in sport? beyond just the mind tricks and gimmicks? These questions and many more will all be addressed in many different ways from many different perspectives from our guests, and will give you a three-dimensional view of the entire acrobatic world. For this first podcast, I'll be giving you snippets of what to expect from our guests, starting with a bit more information about my personal acrobatic background. I tend to be pretty silent about my personal beliefs through public forums because we've been so busy traveling and developing freestyle trampoline as its very own community. But instead of me babbling to you about my life story, I've pieced together a few fun segments from other people's interviews of me. It will help give you a background to the development of our freestyle trampoline community. And if you're driving to work, subscribe to our audio podcast on iTunes or Podbean to simply listen. But if you're watching on YouTube, you'll get to see our guests' real emotions and see great video footage of our guests in action. I hope that you guys enjoy our show and that our guests and I can help you learn from all of our experiences. Okay everyone, let's go.
How low do you get to the ground? I broke the last cameraman's nose. Did you really? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't do that. No. I'm not the other camera guy though. There we go. It's recording.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Ooh, cool. Alright guys, I'm a vlogger now. Jesse got demoted because he sucks.
Yo.
And now he's in the back here because
on three guys' laps.
Yeah. Here we go. Did we take the wrong turn? No, we're fine. No, we're good. We're good. Church is good. And make a left up here. Alright, so we're going to Freestyle Frenzy now. And we got Freddie in the back, and we're just hanging out, and we're gonna train. Everyone's been asking about Freddie. It's funny because I would have honestly thought that more like girls would have asked about it, but it's a lot of dudes. It's kind of funny, but that's okay.
Every guy loves a stuffy.
Every guy does love a stuffy. There's live stream girl.
Can I give you one tip for vlogging, Greg?
I'm a great vlogger already, but okay.
It's a wide angle lens, so if you're in the side of the screen, your face will look like this, like stretched
I can already kind of see that. That's okay. That's all right. I'll just leave it to you guys.
Dying in the back.
These guys suck, and that's why I leave it to them. And I'm gonna give these guys a camera. Yeah, well, I can't really. Who's this in the side? There we go.
That's Wally.
And we got Freddie in the back, and we're just hanging out, and we're gonna train. Everyone's been asking about Freddie. It's funny because I would have honestly thought that more like girls would have asked about it, but it's a lot of dudes. It's kind of funny, but that's okay.
Every guy loves a stuffy.
Every guy does love a stuffy. There's live stream girl.
Can I give you one tip for vlogging, Greg?
I'm a great vlogger already, but okay.
It's a wide angle lens, so if you're in the side of the screen, your face will look like this, like stretched
I can already kind of see that. That's okay. That's all right. I'll just leave it to you guys.
Dying in the back.
These guys suck, and that's why I leave it to them. And I'm gonna give these guys a camera. Yeah, well, I can't really. Who's this in the side? There we go.
That's Wally.
There's Wally. Yeah.
And that's Julian, and that's what's your
Paul.
Paul.
Nice to meet you.
Paul is from Riding Zone.
He has a big YouTube channel. He has 500,000 subscribers.
And a TV show.
And a TV show.
So they're documenting. Yeah, it's French, which makes it not very cool, but that's okay. I know, all the Frenchies are gonna be like, damn it! But no, they're actually here. They're gonna be documenting this because they have a TV show all about cool extreme sports, up and coming stuff. So they're seeing that there's a lot of similarities between skateboarding, snowboarding, how that kind of built, and all the stuff we're doing now with trampoline. So it's really cool to be able to have these guys kind of follow some of the athletes and make a little documentary about it. So that'd be cool.
I'll catch up with you guys in the trampoline park.
You're not gonna find kids with more self-confidence than what we saw in there this weekend.
Yes! Yo!
Well, what do you think about this weekend?
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah, I enjoyed it so much. You see some stuff on YouTube, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like watching comedy on YouTube. It's just not there. You have to see it live to understand it, to see the energy around it.
Almost.
What I loved was the camaraderie between all the athletes, helping each other, being supportive of each other, being happy when your competitor does a great routine.
That's the thing that really stuck out for us too.
Wonderful.
Do you think that if we were to keep building on this and keep addressing the safety concerns, obviously, and keep developing it, do you think this could be a viable, at least, option in the marketplace?
Sure.
Like a team aspect, right? And you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the Canadian junior national team and competed at nationals?
I was on the senior team, but yeah, you got to go through junior to get to senior.
Awesome. That's amazing. And so how many years did you compete at that level before you decided, okay, this competition and structure still isn't for me?
Not that long. I was just in it for a couple years, and I basically didn't have another option. You know, freestyle stuff didn't really pop off but back then. That was 2009, 2010 kind of thing, and it was still getting going. Damien was just putting out his stuff, and then people were starting to figure out what's going on. And for me, I just basically said, look, guys, this really isn't for me. But me being who I am, I basically, let's say, ruffled a bunch of feathers on the way out. So I competed going from gymnastics until I was about 17. I was actually a gymnast most of my life. And then because I had a gymnastics background, I could easily go on a trampoline and just kind of modify it a little bit. And I had the strength that a lot of these guys really didn't have. So I could quickly catch up with the spatial awareness and all that sort of stuff and just linking the routines. But then it just became, okay, well, and this is going to sound really bad, but I was like, where's my money? Where am I getting paid? Where's my career? Where's my business? What do I do? You won the Olympics. You came back and just then went back to your regular life. Okay. Oh, you won the Olympics again and then went back to your regular life. Okay. There's a big problem here. And what happened to me, I started seeing these kind of behaviors happening. And I just started getting into conflict with the team and everything just because I was that guy that said, you know, screw you guys. I'm not going down your rabbit hole. Right. And I used to think of it as a rabbit hole. Now, being a bit more mature, I see it just as an alternative. But to me, when I was in that moment, this is a rabbit hole. I'm ruining my life by being on this team, basically, is what my brain was saying. It does help, depending on which side of the spectrum you're on, because then my business partner, Trish, comes in and says, okay, we're gonna start working with you. I used to coach her daughter. So that's how I got hooked up with her. She used to do freestyle rally racing. She used to rally with John Buffum, who knows like Travis Pastrana and these guys. She used to know Travis back when he was a little kid, basically. You know, so she comes from that kind of world. And that's where I wanted to go because that's where I saw the sponsorship. I saw the money. I saw the branding. I saw the social media. That's why I was like, okay, trampoline, I need to get out of these tights and get into something a little bit more lucrative and more fulfilling. You know, and so she basically said, and this, I'll never forget it. We sat down at Starbucks. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what I was doing. I go to her and say, hey, I want to go to Rio Olympics. And I got a bunch of years, but help me out. She said, why would you want to do that? And I was like, my entire life is dependent on that. What do you mean? I've been told that the Olympics is the ultimate thing any human being should strive for. What are you talking about? And she's basically like, well, okay, what are you going to get out of it? I'm like, well, it's about $30,000 to $50,000 from Canada if you win. She's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, something like that. You know, there's a bit of endorsements, but nothing really. She's like, oh my God, no. You know, and even if you're going to get endorsements, where are you going to put the branding? What do you mean? I thought they're just going to give me free money. Yeah. You know, that was my kind of, you know, young kid attitude. And she quickly gave me a lesson in sponsorship and said, you're not going to get sponsors on Team Canada. They won't even legally let you. Remember, you're not legally allowed to have sponsors that don't go through the federation. And they do it because they can control the image and all that sort of stuff. So I understand. But it means that all the doors for revenue and for business development and doing anything purposeful with my life, unless I was going to win and then write a book and do all that stuff, which I still didn't really want to do, I had everything closed. So I didn't see an opening. So we basically said, you know what, there's no opening in this market. I'm not going to go own a gym. I'm not going to just coach my entire life. That gets boring real fast. You know, I need to do something. So let's go invent a market. And that was when the Nitro Circus thing started happening. And we got some behind the scenes with all that. Got to talk to Travis about it. He basically said the same thing. He was like, well, if you've done it once, why are you going to do it again? When you've done one routine, why would you do it again? Either do it better or do it different, but don't repeat life over and over again. So that was all happening at that sort of same time. I was transitioning from basically an automaton robot that thought the Olympics was the be-all and end-all to someone who saw more globally where the future could hopefully go if we did the right things.
That's wild. And so when you made the decision to leave the national team and just focus kind of, I guess, on training trampoline for yourself, How did that work out? Because obviously you're no longer a member of a team. Did you have to pay to go to these gym sessions, or did you have a relationship with a gym that allowed you to train? Because obviously once you disassociate with being a team member, you're just like a normal patron, right? So how did that work out?
Well, actually, we basically lied to them. So, so what happened is, and I know there's going to be some Canada people right doing this right now, but whatever. And what happens, I knew I was out, and Dave knew I was out. They all kind of knew I was out about a year before I actually left. And because I was already skipping training to go and do the bag jump stuff. I was already skipping training to go and do this and to do that. And I just was showing up later. You know, it's like a girlfriend. When they just show that lack of interest, you know that the time is coming, right? Yeah. So I was already stacking my deck while I was training. So I was producing a bunch of those videos as stockpiling for my exit. You know, nice. It was also to see if I would get into Cirque du Soleil, because I was doing that at the same time, but I didn't really want to do Cirque. I'd have to uproot my entire life to Montreal. Didn't want to do that, you know. So I was already building that. And then I remember one day I wake up and I get an email, and it was from Dave, and said, basically, you're not part of the team anymore because you don't have the right attitude, or you don't have our attitude. Can't remember exactly what he said, but basically they were kicking me off team. But then literally the next day, I basically called up Trish and a couple other mentors that we had, said, all right, we're going. And we were literally on a plane the next day, literally. And then we were going off to Europe to start doing more bag jump events and stuff. And it was all pre-planned, so there wasn't a delay. And we did that on purpose. So I played the game so that I could use that facility until I was ready to go, you know?
Okay, totally. And for those people that don't know what you just mentioned briefly there, that's also something that I remember from all of your videos back in the day around like circa 2013, 2014 was all of the bag jump stuff, which for people that don't know, you teamed up with a company that was basically putting out giant airbags, and you were doing crazy stunts like climbing on the top of cranes and doing insane double, triple, quadruple flipping and twisting moves to these airbags and stuff like that. And obviously drawing upon the experience and the body awareness that you had from trampoline. And so my question for you is when you're doing the bag jump stuff and when you're doing the trampoline stuff, do you ever get nervous? And if you did, how did you overcome the fear of that in order to pull off these amazing feats? Because a lot of them had never been done before.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer this without sounding dumb. I will say that fundamentally, I didn't really have a fear. It's not because I'm like psychotic or anything. Maybe a little, depends who you ask. But the fear wasn't really there because I had lots of training. I literally had like 20 years of training under my belt when I was doing these things. So it wasn't like I just woke up one day and said, hey, you know, there's a guy, Danny, he's jumping 52 meters off a crane. Why can't I do that? No, it was, we built it up. Everything is systematic in my world. I was trained, and that's the good thing the traditional side did teach me. I didn't like the politics that was going on, but the training aspect that gave me that structure, 30 hours a week in the gym, you know, that gives you a very good template of what to expect and what to not expect. And so that therefore, when I go to a new thing, I really just built it up like I did in the gym. I just basically showed people that only stayed in the gym that you can do this outside. You can do it in a different way. And the mechanics still make sense. The progress still makes sense. Just it looks different. Don't forget the underlying pathway to success. And if you actually fill in all the gaps, we have this rotational model of education where instead of the 2D sort of do this, then this, then this, we look at it more holistically, saying there is infinite possibilities. And if you understand the similarity between all these different skills, the similarity between a Yurchenko and a Kong, and the similarity between a backflip and a back full, and all this stuff that seems different on the surface, you realize underneath all that, they're very similar mechanics. And once you really understand that, fear doesn't even come in, because why would you have fear? Fear is the unknown. I don't have an unknown. My worldview encompasses all of it. And that's where the freestyle educational system has really developed out of that sort of mantra of simplifying everything to very common repeating principles.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense, man. I don't think you sound dumb or reckless by any means. A lot of the top tier athletes that we talk to over time, they all basically kind of reiterate the same thing, which is like the existence of fear obviously does exist in the world, but a lot of them are able to, you know, push that down because of all the years of experience and training, and they're able to trust themselves and their bodies. And now one of the things you just kind of touched on, which I was going to segue into, so you did it perfectly, is that one of the things that you're known for in your coaching method is, like you said, you don't go off of the standard 2-dimensional model of training. You've kind of implemented a 3-dimensional model of training. And I know you also implement stacking and ways to build skills and things like that. Can you just like maybe just further expand upon what you just briefly talked about and the differences between the two for someone that's like a layman out there?
Yeah. I don't want to get into too much of the history of it, but if you look at gymnastics training and trampoline training way back in the day, and you talk to all the legends, like I'm talking about Wayne Miller and these guys back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, these guys, basically, it was a trial and error process. And that's what it's always been. And it still is today. But what we're doing is refining that trial and error process. So we're doing a lot less trialing, and hopefully with that, less erroring. That's kind of the theory that some coaches will go to. I, on the other hand, say, well, you can't have good without the bad. So to try to dampen the entire thing by not having people explore what the possibilities are in the name of safety really just means you just don't even do the sport at all. You're basically just a robot that just is told instructions, kind of like the Turing machine. You feed it instructions, and then it pumps out answers, kind of thing, right? Now, the Turing machine was still better than the previous models, and it was the first one that they used in World War II to really help you actually create new novel solutions to, standard inputs. But I'm not going to get into all that. But that was what gymnastics was. The coach tells you the input, it feeds through you, you do the behavior, and then you ask for next, coach, next. Right, that's where it is, and it was actually pretty good. Like, that was a revolutionary compared to just randomly throwing yourself in the 40s, or in 34 when the trampoline was invented. George Nissen and all that. They were just trial and error, anything. So they systematized it, so it made sense. But what's happening now is we're seeing kids get out in the real world, and they're not staying in the gym. They're not saying that I want to follow your path. They're saying I want to create my own path. I did that. Trish did that. All you freestyle guys are doing the same thing. Right? They want to make their own path. And how are you going to make your own path if you don't understand, using our road analogy here, if you don't know how the car works, then you just because you're sitting in an automatic car doesn't mean you know how the car works. I don't know anything about cars, like actually cars, but I have to learn. If I want to go off-road and create my own path, I need to know how to do manual. So we're teaching athletes how to go manual and understand the building process rather than just hearing it from somebody else. Right, and that's we're letting them take the information to their own hands, comprehend it. Where we've done studies, we did this thing I call the SAQ, which is Spatial Awareness Quotient. And what that is basically is I go into a gym and I take 50 athletes and say, I'm going to have a bag here. I'm going to reach into the bag and I'm going to pull out aspects of skills. One's the takeoff position, how many quarter flips, how many quarter twists, what position in the air, and how you're going to land. I mix that all up and I give it to you. And you now have, okay, boom, 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 and it comes together to make a skill. You go off and you make that skill happen in real life now. How many people, you tell me, Travis, how many people do you think were able to successfully make their skills without dying or having me come in and tell them what to do?
I don't know. I don't want to guess wrong here.
Full wrong answer.
Utilizing your system, I'm gonna hope.
Using my system yet. They're just, this is just a test. I'm actually testing their system, the traditional 2-dimensional pathway. When I give them a new novel experience, let's call it, how many of them out of 10, let's say, do you think we're able to use the 2-dimensional to solve my new 3-dimensional problem?
I'm going to be super conservative and also very, generous with this. I will say 50%.
50%. Zero.
That's what I thought you would say.
Not one person, not one. And we did this with freestyle guys in trampoline parks. We did it in traditional gyms. We did it with team gym. We did it with all these different aspects. People, and it just showed me, and we did this for about a year now. Like, it wasn't one gym. We went gym to gym. We did about 500, 600 different people now, and so this is not one person that's probably just there training. This is a thing across the entire industry that just shows these kids don't understand. And to me, that's a safety problem. People are saying freestyle is unsafe, but it's like, well, hold on. You guys don't even know what you're doing even in the gym. So that You have no idea what's going on. You're literally just regurgitating instructions most of the time, and my test proves it. And anyone who wants to think that I'm lying, I will come to your gym for free, and I will do this test with you, and we will see what happens, you know? And so this is where, once we realized that, we said, oh my God, these kids don't comprehend what's going on. They're just regurgitating. So we developed a three-dimensional model as a way to teach people what it is to be an acrobat at the very biological level. We have a biological approach to training, not just this cortical thing that says, if I give you instructions, you'll follow it. That doesn't work in the real world. You know, that's the rationalization after you've already done the behavior. I got to get you before you do the dangerous thing, and I have to give you the tools to do it. And that's the three-dimensional model.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, I may be totally misspeaking here, but does your system also somewhat believe in the fact of trying to eliminate spotting on tricks so that guys can still be able to execute them without the need for a spot, so that they can overcome the fear and develop a skill without another person, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that coaches aren't good. I'm going to say that coaches will help you. They'll guide you just like anybody else. A good mentor will always get you a little bit farther than you would have done by yourself. But at the end of the day, if you're depending on that coach, then it means you haven't really learned from them. And that's straight out of B.F. Skinner. You know, the more the coach does, the less you do. And these are equal things as you go across the scale here. So we do, I at least push a hands-off approach, because we're dealing with a market that doesn't have a coach. If you have a coach, they can help you out a little bit. That's great. I still think you should be, you know, maybe only 10% coach, 90% athlete driven. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with kids in their backyard trampolines. Who's going to spot them? Mom and dad? No. So if I need you to do a double backflip, and that's what you're telling me you want to learn, well, then I'm going to devise a way for you to do it by turning out and going off axis and building it up systematically, where the coach is just filling in gaps. That's what coaches are. When they're hand spotting, they're basically saying, you don't have enough power or technical ability or spatial awareness to do this, so I'm going to come in and do some of it for you. And the idea is that the coach then backs away as the kid learns. But I'm saying, well, I can get blocks. I can do different techniques. I got millions of different ways to get you to do that. I don't need to touch you at all. You know, and I don't even hand spot Cody's. I don't hand spot Kabooms. I don't hand spot all those traditional ones that you normally do, because we do the whole three-dimensional model, which when you do it, it's 360 degrees times 3 axis, right? That's cubed. It's like 48 million. That's 48 million paths I can get you to take on that doesn't make you land on your head. Why wouldn't I just get you to do one of those instead of me busting my bicep, you know, getting you over? Plus, then it means I'm taking credit from you, right? People don't talk about that part of coaching, that the more the coach does, the less the athlete can feel good about themselves. So we're dealing with a market of kids that basically want to give themselves credit. They're there to basically say, I'm a worthwhile human being because I did that triple or that quad or that con gainer or whatever it is. They're doing that to give themselves confidence. So we don't want to take that away. We just want to give them a tool that says, hey, when you're having a bad day and things aren't working out, remember this. And that'll give them, again, back on track, and then they can build whichever direction they want.
That's amazing, man. It makes a lot of sense when you break it down from that. And for me personally, like, I've obviously grown up in this world, so like everything you're saying makes total sense. But I feel like even to someone that's an outsider that doesn't understand exactly the technical terms we're talking about, they could probably see the benefit in trying to develop a system that doesn't require spotting, like you said, because the majority of the kids that are participating in Freestyle Tramp now are doing it in their backyards without a coach, not inside of a gym, without, with the exception of maybe a couple friends they're training with. Like you said, you don't have all those advantages of a traditional way of going to school or studying it. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What we've seen is that, the traditional way, the teach to test method, as they call it, has shown really bad results in school. And that is the old traditional model of you do as I say kind of thing. And we're saying, how about you discover what you should be saying or doing? And we can help you create an environment. And that's what the FTA is, the Freestyle Trampoline Association, is our way of giving a virtual structure to these kids, even though I can't be there with them every 2 seconds. But I'm doing like psychotherapy on Instagram. We're doing webinars with these kids. We just had a parent yesterday tell us that, hey, my kid wants to learn about sponsorships and all that sort of stuff. Can they come and do a residency with you? We'll pay for a couple weeks of their travels and whatever, if they can come basically work with you for a part of a school project or college or university. And we're now taking co-op athletes and with their parents, And it just goes to show you, this is not just a way of training, it's a way of life. A lot of people look at freestyle like it's a sport and they're all the rebel dumbass kids do that. No, that's not what it is. It's the kids that don't fit in somewhere else. And if you're not going to give them at least a structure that they can control, then God knows what they're going to do instead. And I would rather give them a structure and a community to be part of where we can all kind of work together than this whole, well, if you don't do it my way, hit the highway kind of thing. That doesn't work in the 21st century, not with these kids.
Have you ever sustained any injury? I know there was a fall at Nationals one time that you posted online where you hit your head, but have you ever sustained any serious injury while trying to do these groundbreaking moves?
It depends. Yeah, a lot. I was trying to be diplomatic because I don't know if some people want to hear the injuries, but let's put it this way. I was a gymnast first, and I just always did stupid stuff. I never listened to my coach. I got kicked out of my very first gym when I was 6 years old for not standing in line for vault. So that's the kind of kid you're dealing with here. And I haven't got any better. I've just pretended to. But, so I'm that guy. So I remember one time I was running around the floor doing a little warm up, and there was a little cheese there, you dive roll onto the cheese. And I was like, oh, and you're running around, you're eyeing it. You're like, oh, I see you over there, cheese. I'm going to get you next time. And I run, and the next time I do like a dive roll. And there's concrete because this is back in, I don't know, earlier in the day when there wasn't as much crazy equipment now. And it was just concrete between a pommel horse, mat concrete. So I jump over the concrete thinking I'm fine. And I land directly on my head right before the cheese. So the cheese is here and I land bang right. But this is when my coaches would beat the crap out of me if I had done that. So I get up, I'm dizzy, but I pretend to get back in. I'm like, and I did a lot of that sort of stuff, falling off a mini tramp, smash my head on the frame, thinking I could use a mini tramp as a wall trampoline. Not a good idea. Nope, I was too big. One time I broke both my wrists on pommel horse. That wasn't really a huge injury. That was just overuse. I've been very lucky that I haven't had any medium injuries. Like I've never actually broken an arm. I've never broken a leg. I've sprained and torn stuff a little bit, but nothing too crazy. So I've gone from 0 to absolute death. So we did a video. People don't actually know this. I'm not going to say the brand. We did a video with Devin Supertramp that people don't know I was actually part of, because I didn't actually become a part of it because I wrecked myself literally the first day. So, and this is a big production and everything, and it's actually done very well. And on the first day, I'm playing around. So what happened is they had trampolines everywhere, and they were using a, what do you call it, like a glide cam?
Gimbal?
Yeah, like a gimbal glide cam kind of thing. You know how Devin's guys do it. And there was a rip in the trampoline so that they could use the glide cam and get unique shots. And, Trish, my business partner, says, Greg, don't forget there's a hole in that trampoline, right? Yeah, exactly, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's fine, I got it. And I'm already kind of into that, that mode, that like video mode. And all I know is I'm doing side flips as they're shooting the films and stuff. I'm doing some side flips. And all of a sudden I realize I'm going through this hole. And I'm literally just like this. And I fall down. I think they told me it was about 15 feet. I smashed my head on a bunch of steps and landed on my back. And I was knocked out, head bleeding everywhere. I quickly come back into consciousness. And in my head, this was still back in the day when I was still really trying to get up and get going, with my career. And I was like, crap, I'm going to ruin this. I got to go. So I quickly jump up, and I'm obviously going on pure adrenaline at this point. And I keep telling the guys, everyone's like, oh my God, Greg's screwed. We got to get him to the hospital. I'm like, no, I'll finish the video. You guys don't know anything. I'm fine. Look. And I end up doing this, and there's just blood and like guts and stuff off my head, and my hair is coming out. I'm like, oh, that's fine. And I'm like, let's go. So they're like, no, Greg, we're not letting you obviously go. So they forced me into an ambulance. And then the funniest part about that story, besides going through the hole that I was told not to go through, was that then when I'm in the hospital, I don't remember all the in between, of course, and I had like obviously severe amnesia and all this sort of stuff, and I got stitches and everything's fine. And then when I woke up, though, I could only smell cheeseburgers, and no matter what you put in front of me, it could have been vegetables, it could have been anything, it could have been poo-poo. I would have smelled bacon cheeseburgers. And that happened for a couple months, but it did go away. And so that was probably one of the worst injuries. I got an x-ray once, and I have actually like busted my spine a whole bunch of times. So my spine kind of looks like a Jenga block. Everything's off by a little bit, just from all the stuff. But I guess, yeah, no major injuries, but definitely a lot of close calls. And that one cracking my head open, I guess, was the big one. But then I was up the next couple of days, again, just getting my career started. I was up coaching next couple of days I had a hoodie on because I was so cold. I hit the hypothalamus, which is the back part of the temperature regulator, right? And I hit that really, really hard. So I was freezing all the time, and then so I get into the gym and I have my glasses because I was sensitive to light for the same reason. And I have glasses on with a big hoodie and I'm coaching kids that I don't really know at like a clinic. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't good. But we got through it. It was a good memory.
That is an epic story, man. That is crazy. I mean, I know you just talked to me the other day about some stunt stories. That's right up there with that. That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah, well, the clients, they were very good about it. No one raised any alarms. Everything's good. We're still actually good friends with everybody that was in on it, and it was perfectly fun.
For people that are out there that have probably seen what we're talking about, how do you actually define freestyle trampoline?
I define it as saying that, are you free to create your own style? That's simple. Do you understand the mechanics enough that when you imagine something in your head, some weird flip with some unique position, do you understand how to break that big skill down into all these little parts, the size of a hair, and build it up systematically the way you pile up Jenga blocks or Lego blocks, and be able to not fall down and hurt yourself? It's basic comprehension. And if you understand the underlying building process, then you can literally build anything that the human body can do. If the body can move this way, you can build that movement. And so therefore you're free to build your own style, and therefore you can invent skills. The unique thing about freestyle trampoline compared to traditional is that traditional says, here's the code of points, and you're going to be marked on how well you perform compared to the ideal perfect thing. That doesn't really work, not with these kids at least. And we're saying, well, there's no such thing as perfect. So why beat your head over something that doesn't really exist? Why not go and tell the world how special you are? Everyone's unique. Everyone's got their own neurons and their own biology and circuitry and experiences and all that. Why not amalgamate that into something and use that to create something that's yours, that you can own, that you can take the confidence of saying, I did this. This is me. This isn't the coach. This isn't the system. This isn't the Olympic committee. This is me that did it. And I think we're in an age where kids want to say, I did it, not because of you, but because I understand it. And we are trying to develop that into a systematic pathway to help these kids stay safe, but be able to unlock what acrobatics really is.
Well, I hope that gives you a bit more of a background to what our team has been up to for the last several years. It has been a crazy ride with lots of lessons learned, but we've also had a lot of fun on the road. Now let's focus on a few of our guests. Here are a few clips of our conversations. All conversations about 45 minutes to an hour and a half long, covering a wide range of topics as previously discussed.
Then going into the World Championships, I was training hard, and it was 4 days before. I took a bad hit and I dislocated my shoulder. Pulled 2 of the screws out. I went to the hospital, they scanned it, they put my shoulder back in and told me, hey, you need surgery, there's 2 screws missing. I said, no way. I've just come back from another shoulder surgery. I've worked so hard. I'm gonna be on that line of the competition. So they put it back in. I went home, ice all night. I was in so much pain. I went back the next day. Cut a long story short, and the next 3 days, I was in the hospital 4 times in 3 days, dislocating my shoulder.
Yeah, no, so the original show is Japanese, so it's an original format from Japan. It had run in the UK, and it had been tried in a few other countries and it failed. And it was kind of, when the show launched, the format game was still pretty early business. The idea that you take a show and you can repeat it country by country. And our Canadian show just took off like a rocket. We were the number one Canadian produced show in Canada, beating shows like American Idol, which was Canadian Idol at the time. Very, very successful. And so everyone kind of sat up and looked. So Mark Burnett approached Sony. Obviously, he's a very successful producer, survivor, and he said, I want to produce this. I talked to him. At the time, it's funny because they said, look, you do a great job here. We basically just showed ABC your show, and they want to buy. They like what you've done. It's great because we tweaked the format. We changed a bunch of things off of what the Brits and the Japanese had done, and we said we're going to find great people. And in the end, like of their initial cast, 2 of the 5 dragons were Canadians, and they've stayed. Those 2 guys, Kevin and Robert, have stayed with the show, all through its run in the U.S., which is over 10 years now.
And my accident is it's no dramatic story. I was just on a motorbike, and a guy ran a red light, and I went underneath his car and got dragged down the road for a bit. So I broke my spine at the neck, the thoracic, and the lower lumbar. So it just got eviscerated, and so my injuries were really bad. And I ended up in a hospital for 6 months. But leading up to that accident, I was always a very active outdoor, what I would call recreational sport. So whitewater kayaking, mountaineering, all of the things that encompass a healthy outdoor life. And surfing was one of them. So part of my path had always been working in institutions like kids camps, water sports centers, and teaching and training. So I'd worked with disabled people before I was injured. So I actually knew about, at that time was called adaptive surfing. So my pathway into it started before I was injured. And we were surfing up in Malibu. Oh no, it was Rincon. It was up in Rincon in California. And it's a beautiful point break, very clean wave. And I took this long ride in and flipped over at the end of it. And my belt got stuck and I couldn't get it off. So I was upside down and stuck upside down in the water. And I kept on trying to get the thing off, and I couldn't. And I managed to get my face to the surface of the water, get a gulp of air, went down again, and then, I don't know, it's probably a minute's past now. And a minute's a long time. And I'm like, oh, I'm really stuck. I can't get out of this. So I scrambled to get my face up by the water again and just break the surface. I managed to make a noise. And people are always watching. And eventually somebody came over and got me, and they just flipped the whole thing the right way up. But I was still stuck, trapped in, and we figured out what had gone wrong with the belt, and I just scrapped that whole system and started again.
That must have been pretty scary. What was wrong with the belt? What happened? Did it just get stuck on something like a rock or something?
I'd wiped out pretty hard and it twisted. And the buckle, the quick release buckle, had got seized within its own webbing. So I couldn't, it just wouldn't come off, wouldn't release.
For us, after being named to the Olympic team, literally the next day after being named to the Olympic team, they brought us to a World Cup. So right after being named to the Olympic team, all the Olympians, so the male and female Olympian, plus our alternates and our coaches, all traveled to Italy and went to a World Cup, like right after the fact of making the Olympics, which was really difficult because I had so much emotion after being named to the Olympics that I really shut down. I needed just a little bit of a break and a little time. I think it was one of my,
that's terrible.
One of my first competitions that I performed at. But I think my emotional level was just so high the week before that I just couldn't take the time to refocus quite yet. I now had this new expectation, like I'm Olympian. I'm going to be moving forward. And like, but my steam level was just so low. It was so much emotion put into that moment. And then it was like, okay, well, thankfully that was terrible. So now I need to get my head in check and move forward and figure out how I'm going to push forward for the Olympic Games.
Well, I think we used to oversimplify this process and kind of define it as coach-driven, performer-driven. But I think the reality is that the most expedited way of learning is very much coach-driven. Yes, it will be most expedited way of learning, but I wouldn't even say, maybe I shouldn't even use the word learning. It will be the most expedited way of skill acquisition.
To get to the end as fast as humanly possible.
Exactly, but
it's
it's what we call a greenhouse conditions. You create a perfect greenhouse conditions to learn that trick. But when that trick has to be performed in front of the audience or in front of the judges, in front of your peers, something changes and you don't perform the same way. As an example, it will take something else intellectually in order to be able to manage yourself, whether it's your level of arousal or whether it's level of focus or. The point is not that. The point is, if somebody else owned every aspect of the process of my learning and drove it, then I have not become an owner of it and a master of it at the end.
Now you have to understand that when you're doing a multiple twist somersault, okay, the more twists you do, there is a natural cantering or leaning of the total body unit sideways. It's called nutation in physics. Okay, it's like the Earth. The Earth spins, but it's tilted on its axis. That happens naturally. And the more you twist, the greater the nutation. Okay, so that is a natural action-reaction phenomenon that occurs. So if anyone were to look at three-dimensional photography of anyone twisting more than two times, you will see the beginnings of nutation. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. If you take a top and you spin it on a table, you will notice that it'll tilt and go around in a cone as it's spinning. The longitudinal axis will prescribe a cone. Well, that's the tilting about the axis that occurs naturally. So, you can't, if you want to have a rule and say, if you tilt too much, I'm going to penalize you a twist and call it 7, well, then you're injecting a rule, but the fact still remains you have twisted 8 times. You may only get credit for 7 if you want to make it a rule, but you still have done a twist.
Like, okay, so if I would take the other side, like, I understand what you're saying completely, where there is that moral obligation to not be basically a quack,
Yeah.
Then you have the other side, though, that says, well, hold on a second. I got up to this thing. Is it really my responsibility to raise your kids because you basically didn't do it? To kind of, it's almost like when the parent says, well, I'm busy working today. So, big sister or big brother, you're going to take care of little brother. And God knows every big brother or big sister hates that.
Like, you do have that moral obligation in a way, but you don't have to take it to the point where you are actually parenting someone else's kid. So, like you were just saying, like that, yeah, that's definitely not any influencer's job. Like, you shouldn't be anyone's parent except for your own children, if you actually have them. So as an influencer, I don't think it should be that serious to the point where it's like you are so much of an influential figure in this person's life that you end up being like a parental figure to them. Because that's more so than an issue completely different in that kid's household, not that influencer.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because that's, it's almost like the parents will quickly push the blame off onto the influencers of their kid rather than saying, well, technically you were the first influencer, mom and dad, and they're now decided to leave your influence whenever they can for whatever reason, whether it's valid or invalid, doesn't really matter. And now they found other influences. You can't shelter the kid from other people's experiences. So to try to then, message other influencers and stuff and tell them what they should be posting, I think that's drawing the line. Maybe you control what your kid is able to see and how often they can see it, but that's not the influencer's job. They were around before, all that.
Well, I hope that gives you a full scope of what to expect on this podcast. If you have any suggestions for guests that you want to hear from or specific topics that you want us to discuss, let us know. As mentioned at the very beginning, our goal is to initiate more creative and constructive discussions throughout the acrobatic industry so that we can all learn and adapt with the times. Thanks a lot, everyone, and I will see you on our first episode with Freestyle Jet Ski World Champion Lee Stone. He's going to talk to us about how to actually flip a jet ski, as well as give some gruesome accounts of hardcore injuries, but also discuss how the jet ski community is building up their sports structure with the help of brands similar to other freestyle sports. Thanks, guys. See you next episode.